other cultures. We help students to understand these traditions in a way in order to tolerate these societies, and thus will help students to talk about them and also talk about our culture. So if you go to the next slide, please, Dr. Nadia. As you see, next. So here, language is an important component of identity, which means that language learning can be a way of retaining one's identity or a threat to it. So if the general attitude about language is positive, then the learner will be willing to acquire all the aspects, the social aspects of that language and talk about it. If it is negative, there will be a wall, and then he will not be willing to accept the new identity. So here, if most attitudes toward language and identity are positive, then people are going to maintain their identity. If negative, they'll tend to lose it. So next. Again, it's a matter of who we are. I am an English speaker, which means I gained another identity. Here, as Dr. Nadia mentioned earlier in this presentation, she said that we are investing in our students. So when we teach them that language, we invest in this foreign language or the target language in order to create the new identity for our students. So this investment is in the social identity of language is a way of negotiating oneself. The learner is situated in a very large, complex society, and when he gains this identity, he'll be able to be another person in the future, or a successful teacher, or a successful person in the future. Because if we keep him in this small corner of the world without giving him the wide range of the target language, then what is the benefit of teaching him the foreign language? Again, here we come to the issue of teaching English in Iraq. Here now we are opening to a new world of English language, or maybe let's say the target language in general. We're open to other countries, other societies, so we need to do this investment. What we did here in our presentation, we have only 2 recommendations. Of course, we have others, but the most important 2, we derived them from some of the studies that we have conducted earlier. They are qualitative studies, and they are based on interviews with Iraqi instructors in Iraq. And those are not only our views, but their views. So, and it's not a matter of generalization, but it's a matter of views from some of the samples here in Iraq. So here, next, if you go next, Dr. Nadia. Some of Iraqi instructors indicated that what we need, or they said that our previous experience as EFL learners, they affect the way we teach our students. That is totally correct. However, it's correct that we depend on our previous experience, and we use the same way that we learned English in our classrooms, but the world is changing, and what applied to us at that time, it might not be applicable to our students nowadays. Contemporary Iraq, now we have social media, we have other sources of learning language. It might not be available to us at that time when we learned the target language. Now students, they have opportunities to go abroad, for example, to participate in exchange programs. They can talk to native speakers via social media. So here, what we need as teachers to do is to first to involve in the society of language educators. Next, Dr. Nadia. And since we have I can't see the presentation, by the way, if you are hearing me.
Yes, doctor?
Yes, doctor.
I can't see the presentation. I'm not sure if the participants can see them.
Yes, we can see them. As far as I'm concerned.
You can see it? Okay, anyway,
yes,
I can't see it. Okay, anyway. So here what we need is to incorporate other methods of teaching in addition to our previous experience. And I'm sure that most of instructors in Iraq, they do their job very well in incorporating technology in their classrooms nowadays, but by what is available in their institutes, of course. So this is one of the ways in order to cope with the trends of teaching EFL in the best way in our classrooms. We can incorporate technology in our classrooms. Next. The second thing we need, and this is very important, even it's more important than doing technology in the classroom. We need to share experiences. We need to visit conferences, go to conferences, to maybe participate in online sessions and share our experiences and listen to others, what they are doing in their classroom, especially in the COVID-19, for example, crisis nowadays. What other teachers do in the online platforms in order to verify what do they use as a variety of methods of teaching online? Because, for example, me, myself, I don't have that experience in teaching online, teaching students online. So it's good to listen to others, see what they are doing. And also remember that in the Western side of the world, they are very experienced in using online platforms and teaching their students. So now is our chance to develop our abilities in order to teach the target language. Next. So here we talk about that. We said that we need various methods of teaching. And I think here we wrap up the presentation, and I'll leave the platform to other participants. If you have any question about this presentation, we're welcome to answer you.
Have you finished, Doctor?
Yes, I said I'm waiting for questions. So if any of the other participants have any question, we are welcome to hear.
So we are waiting for the dear listeners for questions, if you have any.
The discussion.
Dr. Mahfouz, Assalamu alaikum. Why not leaving the questions to the end of the webinar? This is just a suggestion.
I think it's better to be in contact, immediate contact with the ideas and the interaction. If we just put it off to the end of the webinar, there might be certain disconnection between the ideas. What do you think, Doctor? Yes?
Yes, Dr. Mahfouz, go ahead with the questions.
I'm waiting for our guests to raise any questions if they have any. Yes, I can see one hand raised. Yes, Dr. Iman. Just a minute, please, Mr. Bal, I'll be back to you.
Yes, I have a question, please.
Yes, please.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'd like to thank Dr. Nadia and Dr. Fatma for this interesting presentation, but I have a question to Dr. Nadia, please.
Yes, Dr. Akhtal. Yes, you are most welcome.
Yes, welcome, Doctor. Yes, in your presentation, you mentioned social identity. What does it mean by this term, please?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Akbal, for this question. As my dear colleague, Dr. Fatma said, social identity refers to the ways that people's self-concepts are based on their membership in social groups. And there are many examples for these social groups, like sport teams, religions, gender, etc. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot for this.
Can I ask, please? Can I ask, please?
Yes, yes. Dr. Mahfoud, yes, you hear Dr. Mahfoud? Yes, go ahead,
Yes.
assist Prof. Dr. Yes.
Okay.
I think we have
Good evening for everyone.
Good
Thank
evening.
you, Dr. Nadia, for your esteem workshop. Actually, Dr. Nadia, I have one question. In fact, we don't often observe such examples or abstract in our classrooms. So can you justify? And thank you.
Okay, Dr. Sarab, you are most welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, as you know, there are, as I mentioned, there are many examples about social identity, like race, ethnicity, gender, social class, socioeconomic, and so on. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Nadia. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Just to remind you,
I want to add something. Sorry, Dr. Mahfoud. I want to add something. I want to tell my colleague, Dr. Sarab, here we wouldn't apply new trends in our classes, and we often resort to traditional way of teaching, as you know, talk and chalk. This is the reason why these aspects are absent in Iraq classes, and we tend to be more and more trained or more courses to enhance or to foster these strategy or these techniques that we applied in our EFL
Yes,
classes.
you are right.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
yes,
Dr.
you are right. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Thank you.
half an hour for each speaker. So if you have any other questions before we reach 8:30. So I understand that there are no more questions from our dear guests tonight. So thank you very much, Professor Dr. Nadia, for this highly informative presentation, for your effort, and thank you for your patience for answering the questions. I shall now leave to the second speaker.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Fatima Rahim Abdul Hussein from the University of Misan. She got her PhD from Wyoming University, USA, and she's currently Professor of Applied Linguistics at the University of Misan. Dr. Fatima, the ground is yours.
Good evening for everyone. Thank you for this this invitation or meeting at this time. I want to explain something about relationship between applied linguistics and language teaching. Because these are very important two terms in this time. I want to explain something about the meaning of applied linguistics according to the period of time اللي هي history of applied linguistics. Please move and move again. The first term reflected the insight of structural and functional linguist that could be applied to second language teaching and the first language. This is according to the Holiday 1964. Yes. Another term expanded include language assessment, language policy, and second language acquisition. This is 1960. Yes. History of applied linguistics according to 1970, it means become a problem-driven field rather than theoretical linguist. Applied linguist also included solution of language related to the problem in the real world. Yes. In 1992, viewed as problem-driven are real world-based rather than theory-driven and disconnected from real language. This is according to Woodson. We have another in this 20th century, we have many other terms according to these authors or writers like Hook, 2003. The task of applied linguistics is to mediate between linguistics and language use, and Richard and et al. 2000s, the study of second and foreign language learning and teaching. The academic disciplines concerned with the relation of knowledge about language. Yes. Please move it. Yes. The academic discipline concerned with the relation to knowledge about language to decision making in the real world, or the study of language and linguistics in the relation to practical problems. Yes. Now, we have relationship between linguistic education and applied linguistics. How do they relate? We need to explain something about these three fields. Applied linguistics mediates position between language-related discipline, linguistic psychology, psycholinguistics, and sociolinguistics, and professional practice. It uses theories, principles from language related to discipline in order to understand language related to issues and to solve language related problems. Applied linguistics conduct reach professional practice and the basis of the result develops theory. Yes. Again. A human language is such a complex phenomenon as there is one comprehensive theory about human language. On the other hand, applied linguistics is an integrative activity. The insight acquired from the different approaches to the study of language and how to be drawn together, reconciled, and used to be made the acquisitions of knowledge efficient, useful, and pleasant tasks. Yes. The natures of applied linguistics. Linguistic as itself may be seen as it is not clear. مفاز شوي واضحة. Yes, as an autonomous problem-solving discipline concerned broadly with language education and language problem in society. According to the Prophet, divine applied linguistics, such as the theoretical and empirical investigations of real-world problem in which language is central issue. Yes, Mafaz? According to the Coder, divine applied linguistics as a set of related activities or techniques mediating the various theoretical account of a human language on the one hand and the practical activities of language teaching on the other. Yes. According to Pan, 2009 state that applied linguistics means taking language and language theories as the basis to explain how communication is carried out in real life, or to analyze them in order to draw out practical insight and implications that are useful, or to identify problematic or challenging issues involving language. Yes? Yes, please. The main subfield of applied linguistics: language acquisitions, teaching and learning language, improving teaching methodology, and improving syllables. Yes. Another major focuses of applied linguistics, according to the teacher training and education, according to the developments in training and supervision methods, according to the materials development, teaching methods and techniques, testing and assessment, research on second foreign language development, first language education, descriptions of the language itself, educational evaluation, and language culture. Yes? This is here very important point, please, to know what is the difference between applied linguistics and teaching language. The bridge between linguistic and language teaching is applied linguistic. The linguist must make descriptions of different language in order to test the validity of the theories, to see if this theoretical prediction about human language are in out fact or not. It is characteristic of applied linguistics that practical problems with which it attempts to deal can rarely ever be solved by reference to one theoretical approach to language alone. That is to say, linguistics together. Yes. أدليها شوية. Please move to other page. Yes. Theories influence. Why? Yes, okay. Here, what is the problems are related to language? We have many problems related because if you ask me some questions about why we choose this is figures or diagram. Because applied linguistics related to the to solve the problems of the many fields in the society and language. This is related to the language. This is a problem related to the language teaching, language learning, language pathology, literacy, language contact, language and technology, language use, translation and interpretation, language assessment, language policy and planning. Yes? Yes, Mfaz? More subfield of applied linguistics according to the language and educations. We have three types: first and second education, foreign language education, clinical linguists, and language testing. And according to the language, work, and law, we have another three types: workplace, communication, language planning, forensic linguistics. And the last one, language information and effects related to what? Please, Mafaz. Please move it. Please move it to introduce these three last, not conclusion. Mafaz. Yes, here. Literacy stylistic, critical discourse, translations and interpretations, and lexicology. Yes, that is all the field related to the applied linguistics. And finally, we have conclusions about language as a means of communication through thoughts and feelings. And applied linguistics is often said to be concerned with the solving or at least eliminating social problems involving language. Applied linguistics can have a positive impact on language teachers and has potentials as much as greater impact if problems of transfers can be addressed. Applied linguistics help teachers to produce better learning experience and more sophisticated, complex view of language teachers' knowledge acquisitions and in acknowledge use which take account in the site of form research in this area. Thank you very much. This is all because they give me 10 minutes and I want to make this slide according to this time. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fatima, for this highly informative presentation. You see, Dr. Fatima took us from the roots of applied linguistics with modern flavor after listening to Dr. Nadia, who talked about language and identity. Now the questions of our respected guests, if you have any, I'll see.
Yes, Dr. Fatima, please. I have one question. Actually, I have two, but I'm going to ask you just one. Dr. Fatima, you say that applied linguistics can solve many problems in life. So can you give us actual examples to illustrate your view, please?
Yes, the problems according to our learners in the university. We have many problems, and if you want, many strategies in order to develop our students. And for example, in English language as a second language or a foreign language, we in any materials or any components of language such as vocabulary, grammar, or reading comprehensions, how to solve these depends on how to make the experiment from the researchers in order to introduce him or herself to the students to express his idea or his strategy, who applied it to the students in order to develop our students in that يعني a problem who his or his have يعني. For example, if you has difficulties in learning or teaching vocabulary or in grammar, you should have many strategies in order to apply them in the university. This is the types of language teaching according to the applied linguistics. That is why, for sometimes according to the problems who face in the hospital or medicine or law on court or any places in our society.
Thank you, Dr. Fatma. Thank you for all.
Yes, Dr. Sarab, I think we have a question from Dr. Sarab.
Yes, I am Dr. Sarab. I already asked her. So thank you for Dr. Fatma.
Asked.
And thank you for you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have Taysir, Mr. Taysir Flayih.
Yes, Taysir, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I'm ready. Yes. Yes, Taysir.
Yes, Mr. Taysir, please, if you can hear us. We are waiting for your question. Seems that there is a technical problem with Mr. Taysir. Do you have any other questions?
Alaikum
assalam. Wa alaikum assalam. Rahmah.
Thank you, Doctor, for this beautiful introduction about theoretical or about applied linguistics. I was listening to you and you said something about that we have a bridge between what and what, because I couldn't hear because of a technical problem.
Yes, I think the bridge between language, between linguistics and language teaching is applied linguistics. I think so we have problems in order to misconfusion between what is meant by applied linguistics or methods of teaching English. Sometimes teaching language teaching is sometimes nearest to the applied linguistics. The bridge between them is linguistics. That is why we say this is the bridge between linguistic and language teaching is applied linguistics. يعني because some peoples or some authors or linguists, we don't know what is meant by say there is no relationship between teaching language and applied linguistics. No, we have very relationship between language teaching and applied linguistics. Applied linguistics solve the problems of language teaching.
Okay, doctor. So is it possible to make use of theories in general linguistics and applied linguistics? Is it possible?
What? Please again, please.
Is it possible? Is it? Yes.
Possible
is it possible to make use of theoretical linguistics, theories of theoretical linguistics and applied linguistics?
Yeah.
Any bridge between them?
Why not? Theories or model or other things, we can supply them in linguistics. Linguistics depends on many models in order to apply their experience, their experimental and other things.
Okay, thank you very much.
We have
making
descriptions of different language. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taysir. Do you have any more questions? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Dr. Fatima. And now we have the third. You're most welcome. Now we move to the third speaker.
Thank you.
Yes. We move to Professor Dr. Basim Yahya Jassim.
لا ما بعد وين
Yes. Yes, Dr. Muhammad. Can you hear me? Dr. Muhammad Bati. Okay. So we go on to Dr. Basim and then we'll go back to Dr. Muhammad Jassim Bati. So Professor Dr. Basim Yahya Jassim is currently head of the Department of English at the University of Mosul and a professor of applied linguistics at the department. He's going to move you to yet a very different area of applied linguistics. Yes, Dr. Basim, the ground is yours and we are ready to listen to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Everywhere in Iraq, I am expected to be the last speaker, but because of the technical problems I am now the third speaker. Well, my contribution will be a rhetorical question. Well, my contribution will be a rhetorical question. Is applied linguistics a panacea for every language-related problem? So my contribution will try to answer this question. To begin with, its own, and this is the domain of applied, the domain of theoretical linguistics. Or it can be, or language can be studied as an end, not an end in itself, but as a means to a further end. And this is the domain of applied linguistics. Applied defined as an application of linguistic theories, linguistic analysis, linguistic findings to non-linguistic fields. I understand applied linguistics as the application of linguistic analysis, linguistic findings, linguistic research to language-related problems that may arise in the domain of that may arise in the domain of law, in the domain of language teaching, in the domain of medicine, and in the domain of translation. Now, let me start with the relevance of applied linguistics to language teaching. The relevance of applied linguistics to language teaching is evident in two domains: in syllabus design, that's to say what to teach, and in methodology, how to teach. But applied linguistics is more interested in what to teach than in how to teach. When designing a syllabus, the applied linguist is called upon to do the following. Number one, to describe the aspects of language to teach, and to define or determine the skills we'd like to develop. Number two, he is expected to provide something important concerning the selection of these aspects, which is appropriate to particular students in a particular situation. So here, should we teach structures? Should we teach notions and functions? Or should we teach skills? If we concentrate on structures, what type of structures should be taught? If we start with notions and functions, what are the notions and functions that are going to be taught? If we start with the skills, what type of skills should be developed? In this case, the applied linguist should provide insights into how to select from the aspects of the linguistic knowledge to be developed. Here, the applied linguist is also invited to grade the material selected and to sequence it in a way that is appropriate to specific learners or to specific context. Another field in which the applied linguist is called upon within the domain of language teaching is methodology. The applied linguist is expected to suggest what the approach, that's to say the general assumptions about language teaching and learning, the approach to be adopted, the method to be used, and the techniques to be implemented in the classroom. Now, the second domain of applied linguistics is translation. In translation, the applied linguist is consulted when designing a course in translation. He is expected to answer the following questions as far as translation is concerned. Number one, what structures of the target language and the source language should be taught? This is the first question. The second question, what type of skills should be developed within the domain of a translation? What type of strategies should be emphasized? What types of strategies should be de-emphasized in a given context, and why? The main concern of the translation is machine translation. In machine translation, the applied linguist is expected to provide insights into what to feed the machine. What type of linguistic material should be fed? Should we concentrate on lexical equivalence only? Should we introduce a transformational generative grammar or systemic grammar? Or let us say relational or systemic grammar? So which grammar is appropriate to machine translation? Is pragmatics important? How can two translations be appropriate? So appropriacy is an important variable in successful language, it's a successful translation. So the applied linguist is called upon to select the linguistic material to feed the machine, and to provide answers to a lot of problems that may arise in machine translation concerning the language material that should be fed. If we move to another domain of applied linguistics, we come to a very important domain, which is forensic linguistics, or the domain of law. Forensic linguistics is a subfield of applied linguistics. This subfield is basically concerned with the application of linguistic analysis, linguistic findings, linguistic methodology to language implicated legal texts in civil and public law. In the domain of law, and especially in criminal law, the applied linguist is expected to answer the following questions, which are completely different from the questions that should be answered in language teaching or in translation. In the domain of law, the applied linguist is expected to answer the following questions. Number one, in this case, in order to judge, in order to provide a scientific answer to the question, a stylistic and a discourse analysis should be made to the suicide note and a comparison between writings written by the deceased and the language of the suicide notes in order to see whether the suicide note has or has not been written by the deceased. Another question, which is completely different, is Sanyo and thank you a case of a trademark infringement? Vatica and Vatica, national and national, and so many trademark infringements. So the applied linguist here is expected to provide an answer to such a problem which may arise within the domain of law. In this case, phonetics and phonology, as well as morphology, are relevant. Here, the applied linguist asks himself, are the two words rhyme the same? Are the two words sound the same? Are the two words appear the same? In this case, phonetics here is, rather than stylistics or discourse analysis, phonetics and phonology are relevant here, you see, in order to provide a scientific and an objective answer to this question. The third question, which is a different domain within the domain of law, of course, is an utterance like, I'll show you who I am. Is this a threatening? I'll show who I am. Is it a threatening? In order to answer such a question, pragmatics is very much relevant. Why? Because the context is highly relevant. In what context has been said? Is the speaker kidding? Is he serious? What is the relationship between the two interactants? Okay, so since the speaker and the context and the addressee are relevant, pragmatics is available. And the pragmatics will provide us with what is called implicature or conversational implicature. Conversational implicature is one aspect of pragmatics which is relevant in order to answer such a question. The fourth question, how can linguistic plagiarism be detected? We know we have different types of plagiarism. One of plagiarism, we have linguistic plagiarism. So how can linguistic plagiarism be detected? In this case, collocation, collocation, style, corpus analysis, all these are relevant in order to see whether two or more texts are written by the same or by different people, by the same person or by different people. If they are written by the same person, it is plagiarism. Similar. If they are written by the text that is disputed, if there is a similarity between the disputed text and the non-text, then there will be linguistic plagiarism. Number 5. Is the voice on a telephone call for a ransom identical with that of the suspect? In order to answer such a question, articulatory phonetics and auditory phonetics are relevant. And the comparison is usually made between what and what? Between known and the same. Voices refer to the same person, and in this case, the suspect is the person, is the criminal. Otherwise, the person is not the criminal. Okay? So in all these cases, the applied linguist is expected to provide objective evidence and be an expert witness. Now, let me move to another domain, which is completely different, in which applied linguistics is relevant. This is the domain of medicine. Now, in the domain of medicine, we have what is called a clinical linguistics. Clinical linguistics, in fact, is an offshoot of applied linguistics. This with the application of linguistic science, of the linguistic analysis, of linguistic description to the domain of medicine, to problems that may arise in the domain of medicine, but language-related problems. You see? Now, in this case, the applied linguist is called upon to provide doctors with what? With insights concerning description, number one. Number two, analysis. Number three, assessment of what? Of language impairment, language deficit, language disorder, like stuttering and stammering, aphasia, and autism. And I show you the relevance of applied linguistics to these subfields. In stuttering and stammering, the clinical linguist is invited to determine what? To determine the type, whether the stuttering or stammering involves repetition of specific sounds, especially consonants, by the way, a specific syllabus, or specific word or words, and whether it involves or whether it doesn't involve prolongation of speech sounds. In this case, the job of the applied linguist is to provide a full description, a thick description of what? Of the words in which the child stutters or stammers. Now, another medical-related problem is aphasia. In aphasia, by the way, we have in aphasia means the loss of language, completely or partially, caused by brain damage. A physiology studies the relationship between language and mind, and what happens when language processes at the production or comprehension or both. So the job of the applied linguist is determine whether aphasia is in Wernicke, that's to say the loss of the ability to comprehend the speech or language, or in Broca's area. In this case, there is the ability to produce the language, or it may be pervasive. So in this case, the deficit involves both comprehension and production. Again, in aphasia, applied linguistics is relevant. It's relevant in the sense that it provides insights into how this medical, in how this impairment or language impairment appears. Well, in autism is a rich domain to be studied within linguistics and within applied linguistics. Autism is a developmental brain disorder or impairment, typically resulting in difficulty in, number one, responding to others. Number two, social interaction impairment. And three, in impairment in receptive language ability. Now, autism has, of course, physical aspects. It may have psychological aspects. It may have clinical aspects, or it may have linguistic aspects, or a collection of all. So the job of the linguist is to identify, the linguistic aspect of autism. When identifying the linguistic aspect of autism, reference may be made to phonology and phonetics. In this case, the job of the linguist or the applied linguist is to identify whether the autistic child typically produces odd sounds, repeats sounds or words in verbatim, as well as echolalia. These symptoms have been identified in the literature. So the job of the linguist is to highlight how these have been realized in a given autistic child. Grammar is also relevant in this case. Grammatical analysis is involved when the clinical linguist has to determine how slow the child is in putting words into sentences. Whether the child is or is not able to produce long statements. How different the autistic child is to tense and the pronouns inversion. Pragmatics can also be relevant when studying the linguistic aspects of autism. In a now, you know that pragmatics is concerned with language in use. So how is language used by the autistic child? How is the autistic child seeks or shares information with others? To what extent is the intended meaning of the speaker is understood? Is the autistic child able to understand jokes? Is he able to understand metaphors? Is he able to comprehend indirect speech? And to what extent? In all these aspects, the applied linguist is expected to provide a full account of the linguistic aspects of autism. And here lies the contribution of applied linguistics. The discussion above very shortly identifies the potentials or the potential areas of applied linguistics and how applied linguistics can be useful in solving language-related problems in non-linguistic fields and thereby help in solving real-life problems. Thank you very much for listening, and the questions will be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bassem, for this highly appreciative and informative.
Sure.
Mr. Mahfoud, excuse me, I have a question, if you please.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm from Kurdistan region, Duhok City. I'm very thankful to all of you for your generous invitation for us to participate or as a listeners to this great workshop. Thank you so much. Thank you, dear Dr. Bassem. My colleague is Mr. Salim from Malaysia. He's currently an MA student there, and now sitting beside me. We have two questions for Dr. Bassem, if there is a chance for that. Thank you. Concerning my question is there any correlation or link between the therapist and the applied linguist in the field of medical linguistics? I mean, is there any correlation in their jobs? Concerning my question, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nashwan. Definitely, there is a relationship. Now here, the job of the linguist is to of a deficit, of a linguistic deficit, which is to be cured, which is to be treated by the doctors. So that his job is that of a consultant. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Mr. Nashwan.
No, thank you. I got the idea. Now, Mr. Salim has, in order not to take your time, he has a question concerning forensic linguistics, and now he's with you.
Yeah.
Hello, doctor.
Most welcome from Malaysia.
Thank you so much, doctor. It's a pleasure to hear your voice again. I just have a question. Sorry, doctor. Being familiar with forensic linguistics will be of our judges.
Please mute your. Just a minute, please. Would you please mute your mic because there is echo in the lecture. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. A question to Dr. Bassem. Being familiar with the forensic linguistics, will this be of help for our judges in our court? And do you believe that this will give him or will give them, a better chance to give, what we call it, correct or better decisions?
Good. Thank you. The job of the forensic linguist is to be an expert witness. He has no right to tell whether someone is innocent or not. His job is only to provide an expert witness. You see that? You see his job? He has no right. This is the job of the judge. His job is to provide, is to make a comparison between a suspect letter and non-letter. Between a suspect, between a suspect voice and non-voice, between a suspect letter and non-letter, between a suspect text and another text. And it comes to
Thank you. Yes, Doctor, we are with you. Yeah, with you.
So this is the job of that linguist.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Bassem, and we are proud of you, really. Thank you so much, and thanks for the University of Mosul, and specifically speaking to the whole staff of Department of English. Thank you so much for your nice and generous invitation again.
Thank you so much for you and for your friend. Thank you very much. Yes.
Mr. Mahfoud, I have a question, please.
Sure.
Yes, please. Ask your question.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
The other people, would you please just mute your mics because we are having problems.
Mr. Mahfoud, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, go on. Go on, Dr. Latif.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for all of you. My question to Dr. Bassem about his presentation. You have mentioned in language teaching domain that applied linguistics is more interested in what to teach rather than how to teach. So do you mean that the applied linguists don't care about the methodology?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Latif, for this question. In fact, a clear-cut line must be made between methods of teaching and applied linguistics. Applied linguistics is more concerned with designing the syllabus. Methodology or methods of teaching is basically concerned with how to teach that syllabus. You see the difference? The job of the applied linguist is to suggest, while the job of the person who is specialized in methodology is to not only sometimes to what's described? Yes, he has to ask specific students to follow, or specific teachers to follow a specific method or techniques that are suitable to specific syllabus. So it seems to me that there is a clear-cut line between methods of teaching and applied linguistics. Methods of teaching is part of applied linguistics, which is basically concerned with how to teach, whereas applied linguistics in general is basically concerned with what to teach. And here lies the difference. Yes.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Dr. Mahfoud.
Alaikum assalam, welcome.
Can I ask a question, Dr. Bassem?
Yes, of course.
Sure.
Thank you. First, thank you very much for your nice presentation and for this symposium. My question is related to clinical linguistics.
Just present yourself. I'm sorry.
My name is Ziad Rakan. Ziad Rakan.
University of Mosul. You are welcome.
My name is Ziad Rakan.
Yes.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Go ahead,
yes, Dr. Bassem.
Dr. Ziad.
Yes, my question is related to clinical linguistics, in which the applied linguist is to identify the problem that exists, of course, language-related problem. Question is, should he or she, as applied linguist, present solutions to the problems?
His main job, the main job of the clinical linguist, is to diagnose, is to describe, is to assess, and only secondarily, he is expected to provide a solution. You see, his job, his main job is to assess, is to describe, is to analyze things. And the job of the doctor or the physician is to suggest a treatment. So the treatment of language impairment is not his job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Dr. Bassem.
Mr. Mahfoud, may I ask a question?
Mr. Yes, of course. Go ahead, please, Dr. Salim. Just present yourself.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Bassem, for this interesting presentation. Okay, you have said that about the relation between translation and applied linguistics. Of course, there is a relation between applied linguistics and translation. However, I think when you talk about the machine translation, I think here applied linguistics doesn't work, because you know that the main problematic area of translation is how to find the appropriate equivalence. And this is the key problem, by the way, of a translation. And you know that because translation is not only linguistic act, this is the challenging, but also cultural, social, and ideological one, right? And so here, of course, in machine translation, I think we have many variables that should be considered. Yes, translation, for example, the text typology. Yes, are you with me?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
So what's your
clear? Yeah. Okay, there are many variables that should be involved, text typology, gender, context, and all these variables. So what do you make? Can you make comment about this, Dr. Bassem, please? And thank you very much.
Yes. I do agree with you that the translation is a field which has many dimensions. One of these dimensions is the linguistic material. Applied linguistics is basically, as far as the translation is concerned, applied linguistics is basically concerned with what material should we introduce, what material should we teach to translation students, and why. This is number one. Number two, what type of equivalence should we account for? Should we suffice with lexical equivalence? What about a grammatical equivalence? What about functional equivalence? So the job of the linguist or the applied linguist is to give insights or implications to the novice translators concerning the material to be taught. I do agree with you that there are so many aspects of a translation, but part of this aspect can be dealt with within the domain of applied linguistics. Other domains are usually the concern.
I think this is enough.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Bassem.
We passed the time.
Thank you very much indeed.
Dedicated to Dr. Bassem's high. Most welcome. You see how Dr. Bassem presented applied linguistics as a panacea, an elixir which is a remedy for all types of problems outside the area of linguistics. After Dr. Bassem, we have the last speaker, Professor Dr. Muhammad Jassim Butti from the University of the Qar. He is currently Professor of Applied Linguistics at that university. He's also a consultative member of many universities. Now I leave you with Professor Dr. Muhammad Jassim Butti to tell us about one of the contemporary issues in applied linguistics.
Oh dear, thank you very much. Thank you, dear Dr. Bassem Jaburi, for inviting me. Thank you for the University of Mosul as well. And I'm sorry for the inconvenience. These are the problems of a new laptop. So I'm terribly sorry for all these problems related to my being the first speaker. What I'm going to say could be very much suitable for the first speaker, but nevertheless, I will refer to some important points regarding applied linguistics. The first one is that we have the term practicality of theory. This is very important. I also refer to the application of linguistic theory rather than any other type of theory. Number three, I will refer also to the application of linguistic theory to any language-related fields. Another point is that I would also refer to restriction versus non-restriction applied linguistics. Another point is about the current research in applied linguistics and in linguistics in general. And another point is related to the nature itself of applied linguistics. As we said, we have all the time certain dichotomies in linguistics and in some other fields. One of such dichotomies is theoretical versus applied linguistics. And as we all know, theoretical linguistics is very much concerned with developing linguistic knowledge in general. What are the linguistic levels, and what, in particular, how forms of how words are coined together to form sentences, how phonemes are organized to form words, etc., etc. Now, so theoretical linguistics then is concerned with studying the levels of linguistic analysis, starting from phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, and discourse can be added. And these levels definitely differ from one scholar to another. Good. Now let's go to applied linguistics. Of course, the first, this is what we are accustomed to, that Aspet Coder is the first who brought the term applied linguistics. And generally, in Coder's words, in particular in his book, which is related to this idea, Introducing Applied Linguistics, 1973, he said, my purpose of writing this book has been to show the relevance of those studies which are broadly called linguistic to a number of practical tasks connected with language teaching. So primarily there is a restriction which is made by Aspet Coder. That restriction is that we have one field in applied linguistics, which is language teaching. Now, generally, Aspet Coder was not convinced of this. He disagreed with this restriction that applied linguistics has got one field, which is language teaching. That's why we said, he himself in his book, he said, I disagree with this restriction because, as he said, there are other tasks other than language teaching to which language knowledge is relevant. That's why we say generally that applied linguistics is a multidisciplinary approach. So here we are speaking about the idea of the restriction of the term applied at the very beginning, where the first birthplace, let's say, of applied linguistics was in this particular field. That's why we say if somebody is specialized in ELT, he is an applied linguistics, because this is it. The very beginning of applied linguistics is concerned with that. So applied linguistics then is not a theoretical study, but it makes use of the findings of theoretical studies in such fields as we listed them, related to language problems, language-related problems. So that's why we say we have, number one, disagreement with the term restriction of the term applied linguistics into one field, which is language teaching. And number two, there is the idea of practicality. This means that applied linguistics without practicality, without applying certain linguistic theories, very much related, and we say that they are linguistic theories, not some other types of theories. This is very important. Now, in applied linguistics, if the linguist is applying linguistics to validate a theory, so this is linguistics, or this is what we call linguistics applied. But if the linguist or the applied linguist is seeking a practical answer to a language problem, this is what is called applied linguistics. So we have to differentiate these two terms. In addition, very much a comment which is made by a number of scholars relate to the idea that this field, which is applied linguistics, is very much restricted to teaching only. A number of scholars, a number of associations refer that there are some other disciplines upon which the umbrella of applied linguistics is available. For example, in Way and Cook, this is a very important book related to applied linguistics, as well as in some other books, we have, as this is very much explained by my colleague and brother, and I'm very grateful for the type of explanation very much provided, and I was happy to listen to him. Clinical linguistics, speech therapy, neurolinguistics, forensic linguistics, computational linguistics, first language acquisition, second language acquisition, language economy, language and culture, political discourse. Now, why am I listing all these? I'm trying just to move some type of fallacy that is currently used. Part of this session is related to some fallacies which are available in our universities, that once we have applied linguistics, then we have only teaching. What about the other fields? There are as many fields as you can list, and they are available in very well-known, very famous, like handbooks, the Handbook of Applied Linguistics, the Oxford Handbook of Applied Linguistics, and some other books that we have plenty of fields in which we have we have applied linguistics. Right. What else? We have also, this is available in, as I said, Way and Cook Contemporary Applied Linguistics. There is a reference to multilingualism. There is a reference to language policy. There is a reference to discourse analysis. Why do we, just take an example, why discourse analysis is included within applied linguistics? Because in discourse analysis, we have to select a model, and that model is going to analyze a particular text or discourse, whether spoken or written, using this model. So we have this idea. We have application. Ladies and gentlemen, as long as we have application, then we have applied linguistics. And as long as we don't have any application, so we are within linguistics. That's why I'm going to refer to when do we really have a linguistic study, and when do we really have an applied linguistic study. As long as we apply a certain linguistic theory, then we are within the domain of applied linguistics. And as long as we are not applying, we are taking just let's say something in one of the levels of linguistic analysis and trying to validate a certain theory, to check it, to see whether it can be applied now. Or another way is to compare languages in order to show some universal features of languages. This is another way of studying language as linguistics, not as applied linguistics. That's why, for example, contrastive analysis, and as this is stated by Aziz, we have two types of contrastive analysis. We have contrastive studies within general linguistics in order to show, as I said, some related features of universality or universal features among languages. Or sometimes we have a practical contrastive analysis in which we try to find a certain solution to a certain linguistic problem. So this is part of it. What else? We have stylistics. And again, in stylistics, we have a linguistic study of literary text. So as long as we take a certain theory in grammar and we apply it to a certain text, may this be a novel or a play or an essay or a poetic piece, that is a poem, so we are within an applied linguistic field. That linguistic field is stylistics, and here and there, sometimes certain branches or fields which can be under the term applied linguistics are making themselves independent of applied linguistics. In addition to this, we have psycholinguistics, in which we have a study of the mental processes underlying the planning, prediction, perception, and comprehension of speech, in addition to discourse, as I said previously. Good. What else? We have forensic linguistics, and this is very well explained by my colleague and brother, Dr. Bassem Jibouri. We have educational linguistics, and this is a term that came about by Spolsky, and in 1989, sorry, Spolsky and Halt 2008, and previously by some other scholars. What is meant by educational linguistics? This is a study of the parts of linguistics which are relevant to educational matters, or the study of those parts of education concerned with language. And this is also a field or a subfield in applied linguistics. Now, insofar as research is concerned, I'm trying to make the matter very brief. Insofar as research is concerned, and during my experience in the Iraq universities, I found some problems very much related to this, the idea of restriction versus non-restriction, the idea of practicality. Sometimes we find a paper, if a paper is linguistic, it should not have any application. And as I said, we have two ways to make a linguistic study: either through validating a linguistic theory, that is, you take a theory in whatever field, in phonetics, in phonology, in morphology, in syntax, in semantics, in pragmatics, in discourse, in critical discourse analysis. You take a Chomskyan theory and you try to prove it. You take something in sociolinguistics and you want to reprove it, free variation, Leibov, etc., Milroy and others. So this is part of it. This is part of a purely linguistic study. Or, as I said, you compare languages in order to arrive at universal features of languages. Good. Now, a paper in applied linguistics, if a paper is to be an applied, a paper in applied linguistics, there should be an application. If there is no application, so it is not an applied linguistic study. Why am I emphasizing these things? As I said, and this is going to be clear, there are certain problems which might face some departments of English in our universities. I'm going again to refer to this in the coming minutes. What else? So if you choose a model in the pragmatics and you analyze a discourse, so this is applied linguistics. If you make a test and you measure your students' achievement, this is an applied linguistic study. If you see the effect of a mother tongue in your students by comparing, etc., through a test or whatsoever means, then this is an applied linguistic study. If you select a theory and you choose it in order to analyze a legal text, so this is it. This is an applied linguistic. Or you use a certain theory in order to solve some problems in pronunciation, etc., like in clinical phonology or in clinical linguistics, then this is part of applied linguistics. So, in addition, as I said previously, there is no study in linguistics which is done without applications. And in this case, this study is not linguistic. If it is with application, then it is an applied linguistic study. I might refer to the following example. Some departments in Iraq give their candidates in their MA or PhD, for example, MA in general linguistics, and you see that the thesis or the dissertation is concerned with a test, making a test for certain students, and we have control group and we have experimental group, and they call this study a study in general linguistics. I don't think so. This is a study in applied linguistics. We don't have to take that applied linguistics is a field in theoretical linguistics. Yes, but the real identity of applied linguistics, as I said, lies in application. Why do those people do this? Because they think that there is no area. هل غادر الشعراء من متردمي أم هل عرفت الدار بعد توهمي? They think that there is no area in linguistic which is purely linguistic, which cannot be, which has not been studied, and in which there is something to follow, to talk about. Yes, so what? So in this case, let's make our departments applied linguistic departments if we don't have any. What complicates the problem is that there are here also some applied linguistic theses, or people specialize in applied linguistics or even in teaching English as a foreign language, and they make something theoretical in teaching, and this is a catastrophe. It is a problem. We should not at all make something in ELT unless it is experimental or application. There is an application. Now, if we refer back to Aspet Corder in his book Introducing Applied Linguistics 1973 pinpointed that although we were with the restriction that language teaching is the only field of applied linguistics, but still he talked about the selection of materials and the ways to select a material within this applied linguistics. He talked about gradation, how to grade materials. How do we grade the materials depending upon the age, the stage of learning, etc. There is also assessment. There is also presentation. Some of our departments concentrate only on presentation, on the method and how to do. And since the problem with coronavirus these days, they don't have students, so there is going to be theoretical. This is something that is totally not applied linguistics or even in teaching. I hope that I refer to some points that I previously hinted upon. These are some of the references, ladies and gentlemen, that I use, which are very important, like the Encyclopedia, Dictionary, and the Oxford Handbook of Applied Linguistics, the Handbook of Educational Linguistics, and so on and so forth. And thank you very much for taking so much of your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for drawing this line between what is applied and what is not applied linguistics. And now time for questions from our dear guests. Yes. Yes. So, Dr. Mohammed.
Yes, please.
If you don't
This is nice. This is nice. This is very nice.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you.
Dr. Bassem has a final word to say to you before we end this interesting webinar. So the ground is Dr. Bassem's to say a couple of things to you.
Thank you very much.
Dear everybody, the link to the full recording of this webinar will be available if any one of you wants it. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for listening, and have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you very much for you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this available symposium. Thank you.
Thank you very much for you all, Dr. Nadia and Dr. Fatma and Dr. Bassem. Thank you very much for you all. And good night.